Hey everyone, welcome back to what I think will be a very special video. Um, let's talk about, even though it's a slow week, uh, I got three books this week, with a surprise book actually. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably already seen it. But it's a very special week. The Wonder Woman movie just came out yesterday. I actually went to see it. Um, in the second showing at my movie at the local movie theater, the closest one, which is cool because in my old house, the closest movie theater was a long way from where I lived. I didn't have anything close by. The closest shopping mall would, with the theater, was a trip. I mean, really a long trek just to get to go to the movies. That's why for years I just really didn't go, or for months sometimes I wouldn't go to the movies. The last one I saw was Suicide Squad. But yeah, probably missed a bunch of the Marvel movies. Not that I'm really super interested in those. Um, I'm not really. I'm not. I rather just watch those on cable when they come out. They put them on. Um, but the Wonder Woman movie was one of the ones I really wanted to see. I usually want to see like all the DC movies for I'm mostly known as the DC guy. Though I did start collecting regularly with Marvel before going back to DC. Though my first comics were DC. So I'll talk about that later. First off, let's start off with the comics. So, um, so I'll start with the one I think a lot of people might want to hear my thoughts on. So it's Saga number 43, the 25-cent issue, which, as I understand it, they're doing it to celebrate the Image's 25th, and it's also a good jumping on point. So I heard, all of you who read Saga, uh, say it's a great book. I was, I think, a few months or maybe a year or so, kind of tempted of trying it, but um, I wasn't sure it was accessible. It's very hard these days to sort of jump into a book when it's already running, especially such a big hit as Saga, where it's really hard to like get back issues. I know they have like the trades. I don't buy a lot of trades, uh, but this particular issue, I mean, the price alone was a good. Uh, the price alone served as a good. It attracted me with this price. 25 cents, 5 pesos. That's how much it cost me here in Mexico. 5 Mexican pesos. So well, what the hell? I mean, I don't have a lot of books this week, so I might as well try it. And it is designed to be a jumping on point. It does sort of recap the story so far, and it was really easy to follow. The characters are incredibly well identified, so I know who's who. Get a bit of the story. It doesn't, I guess, doesn't really stall the ongoing story as well, but it was really easy to follow. I enjoyed it. I love the art, of course. That's one of the big draws to this book. Uh, and I'll probably keep buying it from this point on. Um, I don't want to add too many books at this moment, but I've been picking up quite a few. So I really need to get more in the in this stuff. just to get a different taste. And this is a good place to start, I guess. I'll probably look for the trades in the future. I hope the shop has them, because sometimes you kind of look for stuff and they don't have it. Uh, but so far, it kind of reminds me when I started buying comics, where I really came in the middle of stories, or a few issues had already started, and because I bought them, bought the newsstand version of the books in stores that sold at the time. They didn't do it anymore. Imported magazines. They also brought, of course, the newsstand versions of comics, which has really gone away these days. Um, has really gone away these days. So I really couldn't get like, access to back issues. So you would usually pick up the issue. I got what was going on in the story, and I was able to move on forward without necessarily going, back. When I went to my first shop a year after I started buying comics, I never even really bothered looking for the earlier stuff, the stuff that came before. I just, you know, just kept moving forward with the comics, and I'm sort of, maybe if they show up, I might pick up those earlier issues that I found, or even earlier stuff. So with this book, I'll probably just do it like I did it back in 1999, when I really started getting into books, just picking up an issue and going forward with it. I like the story. I really don't want to get too much into it though, because I still have a bunch of stuff to talk about. But I found the story enjoyable. And yeah, yeah, you know. So yeah, okay. So now Wonder Woman Annual number one. It has 4 stories instead of one. Four 10-page stories. The cover story, if you will, by Greg Rucka and Nicholas Scott, sort of takes place in between issues of the year one storyline, where Wonder Woman meets Superman and Batman for the first time. So there's really not much of a story, except Batman and Superman are made aware of Wonder Woman, and they just want to find out more about her. They're kind of curious, and they have a really nice interaction. The other 3 stories really just work as a way to showcase Wonder Woman, and it really focuses on her philosophy of compassion and love. And that's really it. I mean, there's one issue where she rescues King Shark from being executed for committing a crime he did not commit, but it was easier to blame because he's a monster. He's a human shark, a humanoid shark. So it was easier for him to be blamed. There's another one where she meets a kid, a monster, and again she does the same thing. She helps them. So they're just cute little stories, nothing major, nothing mind blowing. Probably the first story though, because it clearly changes the continuity. I mean, I think year one actually did change much of the continuity. Maybe from what was in the New 52. I think it really kind of changed it, but not that much if you kind of think of Justice League the Jeff John Justice League book where Wonder Woman shows up. She could that story could have probably fit there, but now with her meeting Superman and Batman before that, that Justice League book from 1952. Now that story just made has been sort of changed the way that story read, if it's still in continuity. After Reborn did a big rejiggering of continuity, and continuity continues to change, where it's probably the how that when we get to that point, that Justice League story might either be in continuity but in a different place. Maybe I'm not sure how much of that will change, but at least this earlier meeting does change the context of that story. Then we got Flash number 23. So I might actually be proven wrong as to my thoughts on the button, but not just yet. So I said they killed Zoom. I said he wasn't going to stay dead because of solicits. They said Zoom returns, which he does in this issue. In fact, he doesn't really show up until the end. But earlier in the issue, we cannot see here, his body, and how suddenly right here we see sort of like a little spark, and then he shows up like at the very end of the book. I also find it very interesting that at the opening, we get like this different history on Zoom and the Flash. So that was intriguing. But like I said, I think I might be proven wrong. It does seem to show some fallout on Batman as well. It kind of shows it up a bit. A little sequence there with Batman feel kind of doubtful of maybe continuing. Like I said, it's not. I might be proven wrong that perhaps the button does have larger consequences. So far, I haven't seen any of it as definitive. I think people reading Batman might provide some insight on that, of how they are perceiving Batman at this point. Is he actually sounding doubtful of continuing his mission? But like I said, the Flash, at least in the Flash, the death of Zoom really seems moot at this very moment. So that was like the big shock, right? That Zoom died twice, and then he's back again. So that's that's not surprising given these are comics, but we're expecting something bigger. But continuity. Solicitation said Zoom is back, so I said maybe we're gonna last. So what else happened? So it's Barry's birthday, and it's being attacked because one villain sort of I can't remember which one. There's so many. Let me see who shows up. Oh, Multiplex shows up because at some point he dated. He went out with a girl that works at the lab at the police at the CSI lab. So he kind of gets kind of stalkery and pretty much lashes out. Uh, Hal Jordan shows up uh, as well. So it's a green, like the cover says, it's a Flash Green Lantern team up, a classic team up actually. Like I mean, because this sort of team up goes back to the Silver Age. If you had the Batman Superman team back in the Silver Age, you had the Flash Green Lantern team up. So like the Green Lantern Green Arrow team up as well. So they go and deal with Multiplex. What else? So as the title also implies, I mean Barry is like really shaken from the button, and especially shaken by Zoom. He sort of seems to be distracted, like I am. Sorry. But yeah, it's an interesting story. I want to see where it goes. I want to see if at least where it's going, because Zoom, like I said, she shows up at the very end and he attacks Iris and Wally. So Wally West too. So yeah, I want to see where this goes because of, and it's always great seeing Flash Green Lantern team up. So anyways, today I went to the shop, Wonder Woman Day. The shop had a sale on Wonder Woman stuff, trades, comics, action figures, or Wonder Woman related stuff like Justice League. There wasn't really a lot to look at or anything I was interested in. I thought maybe I would probably get a trade or something for whatever the discount was, but nothing that interested me. So I just picked up a few books. First, I picked up the only Wonder Woman book I picked up was Wonder Woman number 14. This is from the Gail Simone run, which I have a very small run. I have like about 2 arcs she wrote, 2 or 3 arcs, which was at that point back in 08, 09. The longest I had to stop with Wonder Woman until the Straczynski run, which sort of brought me into the New 52 and up to now just buying Wonder Woman books. And I picked up a couple of a couple of Superman books, 2 issues of Action Comics. This is like stuff that came to the shop recently, in what is back issues. So it's Action Comics 751 and Action Comics 752. Sorry for the glare. Both of them from 1999, which is interesting because, like I said, I started reading comics in 99, but they were Marvel books. So in a way, I'm trying to sort of, at times, I'm kind of trying to pick up books from that time, stuff that I missed. Stuff that I missed that, at that point I wasn't really interested in Superman. So this one actually features a team called the Superman of America, which is kind of funny because back in the golden age, the Superman fan club that this started was actually called the Superman of America. So that's it for comics. That's it for the books I got. Uh, and Now I'm going to talk about the Wonder Woman movie. So sorry if it's a long video, but I'll try to talk about it, spoiler free. And I'm actually I talk about something else after that. So Wonder Woman. I love the movie, and you can understand why it took so long for Wonder Woman to get a movie. It had to be done right. This was done right. The the story itself really, I think it was the first movie where I actually felt it was like an original story, not adapting stuff from the comics. It brings, of course, stuff from the comics, but doesn't really sort of try to adapt or take elements from various stories, or like for example, Batman v Superman took literally elements from The Dark Knight Returns, from The Death of Superman. This one sort of really just brought in all the elements from Wonder Woman history, in a sense, and making a new original story. The acting was great, everything was great about the movie, visually, story wise, and I really thought this through. And the setting in World War I, the Great War, the war to end all wars, was perfect because that war was so messy, and it really showed the worst of humanity. I mean, modern warfare was invented in 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago. Tanks were being used. Airplanes entered the scene as well. All sorts of gas. Trench warfare, was the worst. And this movie could have gotten even worse. Could have showed all the ugliness of the war, but it's a superhero movie. It's a movie that needs to reach as many people as possible. So to keep its rating, I mean, they tone down things, but it's also not a very clear war because unlike World War II, you had a clear enemy, which was Germany, and the Nazis and the fascists, the Italians. You got the Japanese as well. But in World War II, you had literally the entire world fighting, and it was a mess. So the setting and some of the things that are said in the movie sort of show the complexity of the of what humanity is all about. But there's like a scene where Trevor tells Wonder Woman that sometimes it's not one person to blame. Maybe there's a lot of people to blame, because it's because I think in most superhero stories, in even in every movie, in every book, you usually have the hero and the villain. It's all black and white. This one shows grays, where it's not that clear cut who the bad guy is. Of course, we do have a bad guy, which is Ares, but we find which is Ares, but it's as complex, but still it does handle all the complexity. It's also, I think it's a very unpredictable movie. It has a lot of twists. It's got a lot of twists that are so unexpected. Like I didn't see that coming. For example, it had a lot of those. You think you expect something, but it sort of changes things. So I like that unpredictability of the movie. You just don't know where it goes, and you're genuinely surprised where it goes. Um, so yeah, I mean, I really didn't see anything wrong, anything that bothered me at all. Uh, I guess some reviews say that the final battle was fight, like the end sort of ended up being like a typical superhero cliched fight, which is, expected, I guess. But it does a lot of things right. I mean, you couldn't really. I mean, like I said, you had to get this movie right. Uh, for the DCEU, the extended universe films, for female superheroes, for movies with female leads, you could argue about or not argue, but that's what a lot of people talk. It had to be done right for all these reasons. But I think it had to be done right for Wonder Woman. You really couldn't mess it up, and um, it's why since the TV show, which by the way I actually used to watch on reruns when they were being rerun here in Mexico when I was very young, uh, you really hadn't had another Wonder Woman movie or TV show, or because she had to be done right. I mean, she does stand. She's she she's been adopted by a lot of people, unlike say Superman or Batman. She has a much wider appeal, I guess. So it means a lot to a wider spectrum of people. So getting it right just for Wonder Woman's sake was important. I think it had if that hadn't happened, I think I think it wouldn't gone well for Warner's or DC. Um, and I mean, there've been attempts to do things with shows with that David E. Kelly aborted show he wanted to do, which really sort of wasn't right for the character. It had to be very true to the essence, and I think that's what the movie really did. Sort of brought uh, the essence of the character. It even brought the message that William Moulton Marston was bringing through his creation at the time he was writing it, about love and compassion and saying no to these more violent tendencies, war, which is terrible. I remember I recently heard a review where it was even mentioned that it was very anti-war. It was like an anti-war movie, which I kind of see as the message that Wonder Woman brings is not about, I mean, about love, about embracing that, and not so much about just fighting. I guess I might be messing this up a bit. Um, I also like Gal Gadot did a wonderful job where you have this strong warrior woman, but who is at the same time a bit naive, a bit a fish out of water. Very, I mean, she's taken aback by modern life, even modern life being 1917. Something she never really experienced. She knows things, but she never really experienced them, and when she experienced them, it's a cultural shock. Uh, we see that she's willing to fight, but at the same time feels compassion for all of these people she sees when she goes out to the front of to the front, seeing hurt soldiers and orphans and people suffering, and she wants to help all of them. So it really, like I said, that's like the essence of Wonder Woman, and it was perfectly captured by the acting. So it's a fun movie. It's charming. The chemistry is with all of the actors, with all the main actors, is great. So I highly recommend it. Finally, this past week, um, Thursday was the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and I tweeted about it in a way where I said, well, it was 50 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper told a band to play, but I still think that Revolver is the better. It's the better album. A lot of people say Sgt. Pepper is probably one of the best Beatles album, or the best. I used to think that too, but I I really prefer. I mean, like my third favorite. If I were to rank them, I go Revolver, Rubber Soul, and then Sgt. Pepper, because some of the songs, you kind of have like, once you get into the whole history of the making of the album, it was Paul's idea. Paul really was directing the whole thing. The other three went along. You hear like, Dringo has said that he really did get to do much for they. Sometimes he didn't get to do a lot, but just they're sitting around in the studio not doing much. John said no, he was forced to write songs, and so he didn't have a chance to write good songs. And when you think about that, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, John said he practically just copied the words from an old poetry he owned, an old Victorian circus poster. Good morning, another song. The second to last song, the second, no, the third to last song. Part of the lyric came out of a commercial for cereal. And George said, well, there wasn't really much of a band experience. In Revolver, they were still playing together, with their instrument, together. With Sgt. Pepper, they were all over the place. They weren't even playing as a band. You got like 20 musicians, or a little bit here, a little bit there. Orchestras, not a lot for them to really do as a group. And so you got an over adorned, I guess, pop album, which has been sort of praised as high art. I think, I mean, there are really some really good songs as well. You know, you can say with a little help from my friends, Losing the Sky with Diamonds, A Day in the Life. Even within Without You, which is all basically an Indian orchestra, musicians playing there, had good lyrics, but you know, it really shifted. I think to other people, it sort of shifted the Beatles away from who they were, and I would even say it was a very mature album. Like I said, I think the maturity process of the Beatles moving from pop that they were doing, in the early days, sort of changed between 65 and 66. Help, started to move away from the boy girl songs. With Rubber Soul was more folksy, more introspective. It was, as I think a lot of people have said, I don't know if a lot of people, but I've heard it said, Rubber Soul was really like the marijuana album. Revolver was the LSD. And I guess, if you think about what Paul wanted Sgt. Pepper to be, as being the less Beatley album you could think of, and saying, we're gonna create a new band for this album that is not the Beatles, but it's different from the Beatles. It does work, as it sort of shifted the sort of music they were not using, the sort of musical styles, which was a little bit older, with like When I'm 64, which by the way was a song that Paul wrote when he was like 16. Being a little more sort of, music hall type song, the Indian stuff, a little trippier with Losing the Sky with Diamonds. So it was very different from what they were doing, I guess. It sort of added a few tricks to the musicians' a toolbox that now a lot of musicians use. A lot of stuff was invented during that time. But I think it's like the only album by the Beatles that sort of goes up and down in people's opinions. Like sometimes it's like the best, sometimes it gets like very negative reviews. So it wasn't beloved at the time it came out. There were a lot of mixed reviews on it. The New York Times gave a very bad review of the album at the time, and people were angry about it. But it's not really a bad album. I guess it's like my third favorite if I were to rank it. It's an interesting piece of history, and it sort of, gives you a little capsule it's like a little time capsule of what was going on at that time in 1967. We got the Summer of Love. It also kind of showed, where the other Beatles were at the time. I guess, Paul had become very artsy and had, been seeing a lot of avant-garde stuff, a lot of avant-garde art. So that's where he kind of got that idea of doing something totally different. But I think that's when I think the group really started to sort of break apart because they weren't really working as a unit anymore because they were not playing the same room together at the same time sometimes. And they would just be there, but they weren't really doing anything. Like, Ringo say he was sometimes he was there, but he wasn't really playing the drums or doing anything particularly interesting. Sometimes he would play some percussion, but you can actually see that once being those four guys in that room with the occasional extra musician, it would bring, especially with telling with help at this, and of the Revolver, they were still pretty much working together. With this one, sometimes they weren't even the same at the same time because sometimes they were just tracking an orchestra or the Indian musicians. So you know that unity was sort of starting to break. And after the disastrous 66 tour and the months it took from like August, September of 66 all the way to around, I think it was November of that year, when they recorded Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever, they were just they were doing very different things. and and so they were really already going different directions. And the fact that they weren't really playing together all the time in that session, in those sessions, you can see that they were starting to really break up. And by 68, with the White Album, a lot of problems were starting to happen. And so that unit that you had was really breaking apart, because I mean touring also kept them together. um, but yeah, I mean, it does feel, if you start looking at the history of the making of that album, uh, it wasn't always fun, I guess, for them, especially because Paul sort of took control of what he wanted, and how he wanted the songs to be played exactly. uh, it wasn't a group effort as well. So I don't know. Maybe when I pick up the 50th anniversary reissue of Pepper, I might actually change my mind. And maybe it is like the greatest Beatles album of all. Uh, I haven't. I'm deciding whether to pick up the physical version, the physical CD, or download it and get it digitally. Uh, but yeah, so I wanted to comment on that as well, because I'm a big Beatles fan, and I couldn't let that slip away. So sorry for such a long video, but like I said, this is a special video. It was a special week, and there was lots to talk about. So until next time, keep smiling.